Welcome, friends. Welcome to this first ever Zoom presentation of the Caribbean Canadian Writers Group. I'm Ram Jagessar, here with novelist Ken Ramphal to talk about Ken's blockbuster novel, Seeram's Illusions. This little beauty here. And it was published on Amazon earlier this year, but because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do a in-person book launch yet. Now I call it a blockbuster, Ken, but how is it doing? Is the book really busting any blocks?
Well, Ram, most of the people I've sent books to say it's the best book I've ever written. My doctor, who's from Guyana, read my book and ordered 5 more to give to her relatives. She and her family lived through the racial and political violence in the 1960s and can relate to the book. My daughter's mother-in-law bought 8 books to be used as Christmas stocking stuffers. A retired sergeant major in the Guyana Defense Force told me that he stayed up until 2 in the morning reading the book. Before he joined the army, he was a postal worker living in a prominently East Indian village, and he and his family had to move out because of the violence. So the book is really taking off.
Sounds good. So Ken, as some of you may know, Ken and I are members of the Caribbean Canadian Writers Group. We call it CARICAN, a writers group here in the GTA, Greater Toronto area, along with Harry Prasad, Rup Nasir, and the late Naren Dutt. We have produced 10 books in the last 10 years, but this one seems special. It feels like all quiet on the Western Front against the background of the great events of World War One, I'm sorry, or the grapes of wrath against the background of the Great Depression. So, Ken, what is the great event looming in the background of Seeram's Illusion?
Most of it's events, really, Ram. The great events are the senseless violence between the Guyanese people of East Indian background and the people of African background, and the interference of the United States in Guyana. This results in a mass exodus of Guyanese in what is commonly known as the brain drain. This still continues today. The changing of the electoral system in Guyana to the proportional representation system is also described in the book.
So that mass exodus refers to the departure of 400,000 people out of a population of 670,000 in 1964. Big, big indeed. So, who is this Hiram guy? What is his illusion? Where is he from? And who else is harboring illusions in this wonderful book that you've produced?
Seeram is a 16-year-old youth living in the idyllic village of Canal number 2 Polder on the west bank of the Demerara River. He and his best friend Bryant, who are friends since kindergarten, are the only 2 students in the school to pass the pupil teacher's appointment examination, and they're hired as teachers. Everything seems to be going well for them as they embark on the teaching career. As Seeram connects with Lolita, a beautiful maiden from the same village. They have their tryst under a symbolic cashew tree, and they hope to have children and raise them in Canal number 2. It's all an illusion. The CIA foments violence between the two races because it does not want Jagan to be Prime Minister of an independent Guyana. Jagan is a self-avowed communist, and the USA does not want a communist government in South America. The USA knows that Britain will not grant independence to Guyana while there is violence in the country.
Give us a sample from the book, Ken. to illustrate the relationship between the two protagonists, Seeram and Bryant.
Well, Seeram and Bryant had just finished writing the pupil teacher's appointment exam in Georgetown, and they're walking to the Stelling to get the boat across the Demerara River to go back to Canal. Seeram's parents insisted that he wear new shoes to write an important exam, and the new shoes caused blisters on his feet. Walking back home, he's carrying his shoes in his hand. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from the book describing what happened as they walked back to the Stelling. When they came within sight of the ferry, two boys about their age approached them, as they were about to cross Kroll Street. Both of them were black. One was tall and skinny and was wearing blue denim jeans and a blue t-shirt, while the other was short and muscular, his bicep muscles straining at the short sleeves of the striped black and white t-shirt. His pectoral muscles pushed his arms away from his body, and his feet moved in an almost robot-like manner. Both were wearing running shoes, and the small toe of the short one's right foot was protruding from a hole in the shoe. The short one spoke first. "Look at that coolie crab dog. Look how he's wearing his shoes." "Let's show him how to wear shoes," his companion said. Bryant was not big and did not have a reputation as a fighter, but seeing his friend threatened triggered a rage in him. Without any thought about the consequences, he stepped in front of Seeram, eyes blazing with rage, and shouted, "You touch him, you gotta touch me first. We come to Georgetown to write an exam, not to make trouble. But if you want trouble, come and you won't get it."
Sounds good. And what about the lovely child woman Lolita, the aptly named Lolita? What is her illusion?
Lolita, Lolita's illusion is simply to marry Seeram and have children and raise them in Canal too. I'm going to read an excerpt about her meeting Seeram under the symbolic cashew tree. Seeram is waiting for Lolita under the cashew tree. They promise to meet early morning before Lolita's parents wake up. He was startled to hear a rustle, and when he looked up, there was Lolita, dressed in a thin dress, her hair falling over her shoulders. Even in the dim light, he could detect the gloss on her lips. Seeram wondered whether she was cold in the morning air and reached out to take her hand. Then, for the first time, he hugged her tightly. "I'm glad you could come," he said, as he felt her trembling body pressing against his. Lolita said nothing, but continued to hold Seeram tightly and raised her face to look at him. When Seeram kissed her passionately, he could taste the Colgate and was certain that his mouth had the same taste. When he tasted her salty tears and held her at arm's length, "What's wrong?" he said. "This afternoon you're going away. I'm accustomed to seeing you every day. I'll see you on Friday when I come home." "That's too long," she replied. "We have now," Seeram said, as he gathered her in his arms and continued kissing her. "Let's make use of the time we have now." Still hugging her tightly, Seeram gently lowered her to the ground. They lay on the dry cashew leaves, with the blue sakis and the kiskadis frolicking and feasting on the ripe cashews in the glowing dawn, and the dry cashew leaves rustling beneath them. Then Seeram's fantasy became a reality.
In a sense, it's your Romeo and Juliet story, isn't it? And
Yes.
they are both, I think she's 14 years old and he's 15 years old.
Yeah, he's 15, going on 16, and she's just about 14. Two innocent people
And, they,
exploring each other.
and they are caught in in the battle between these two gigantic forces, just like the Capulets and the other group, in the play. So I
Yes.
get the symbol, Ken, that this cashew tree is a powerful symbol. Why is that so?
The cashew tree is a prominent symbol in the book, Ram. It's a symbol for the lovers. They want to have children, raise them in Canal. It promises great hope. It promises fruit. It's a symbol for the fate of Guyana, self-poisoned and abandoned, because Lolita poisons herself under the cashew tree. It is also a symbol for the wasted talent in Guyana, because after Lolita poisons herself under the cashew tree, nobody will eat its fruit, allowing the ripe, luscious cashews to fall to the ground and rot.
So who exactly is causing these troubles in Guyana? Who is causing the troubles in Paradise, leading to the loss of El Dorado?
I think the CIA is the main culprit because it fosters violence between the two races. Imagine people who have been living in the same villages for generations had to move because of the racial and political violence. The CIA is also giving money to the unions to foment the strikes and violence.
I get the impression that the politicians like Chenny Jagan on one side and Bob Burnham on the other side are not entirely innocent in this debacle that happens to Guyana. Is that so?
Yes, Burnham is fighting Jaganam. They were together at one time, and the CIA caused a rift between Burnham and Jagan. And Burnham formed his own party, and the parties were split along racial lines. I just want to read a short passage, if I may, about Jagan talking about what the imperialists and the capitalists were doing in Guyana at that time, and how he plans to make Guyana independent and self-sufficient.
Go ahead, Ken.
Uh, Jagan is visiting Canal number 2, one of his strongholds, and he's addressing the people in Canal number 2. Brothers and sisters, Jagan addressed the crowd. Election time is coming, and I know that I have your support, but all of you have to vote. I know that you have work to do in your farms and businesses and elsewhere, but vote first, and then you could go do your work, or else you're going to make me lose by one vote. I want you to promise that you will go out and vote. There was a low murmur of agreement from the audience. Friends, Jagan continued, let me tell you why it's important for you to re-elect me. All the profits from your labors are going to the absentee landlords in England. Many of them haven't even seen the sugar estates on which you toil every day, but they reap the profits, which are sent out of the country instead of being reinvested homeland, and they pay you next to nothing. They do this not only with sugar. The bauxite industry is owned by a company in Canada named Alcan Aluminum. Minerals from our earth are mined and exported to make people who own that company rich, while we remain poor. We need to control our own resources and not allow our resources and labor to enrich the wealthy capitalist pigs and the imperialist dogs from the Western countries.
Obviously, some people can't allow that, and
No.
events take place. So, what is the result? of the shattering of the illusions of the Canal number two people, of Teddy, and you know, the whole system. What happens as a result of this shattering of illusions?
Well, I just want to read a passage about Seeram's death, which which begins the shattering of the illusions of Seeram, Lolita, Bryant, Seeram's parents, and everybody concerned. Seeram was going home after teaching a week on the East Coast in Mahaikan, going home to spend the weekend. He heard someone from the mob shouting, "Them coolie people killed 3 black people in Bush Lot. And look at this coolie man walking as if he owned Georgetown. Let me teach him a lesson," said a skinny youth who apparently depended on his companions for strength. Seeram looked around him and started to run desperately in the direction of this telling, but he was cut off by 2 men. One hit him on his knees with a cricket bat, causing him to fall, and the other hit him repeatedly with a bicycle chain. As he tried to protect his head with his hands, he was aware of people converging on him and the blows landing on his body, his hands and his feet. He experienced a glimmer of hope when he heard one woman exhorting his attackers, "Don't kill him, just beat him up good and proper." Although he was barely conscious, he heard another voice chastising the women. "Why you saying, don't kill him? Like you're going soft. They killed so many black people. You think they care?" The last thing Seeram heard before he lost consciousness was, "One less vote for Jagan," as a muscular man raised an iron bar aimed at his head. Then the iron bar descended and all was darkness. And Ram, that's just the beginning of the shattering of illusions for everybody in the novel.
So I understand Canal number two doesn't escape despite its distance from Georgetown. What else happens in this once peaceful and friendly village?
Um, at Canal number two, the idyllic village after Seeram died not in Canal number two, but his death brought violence to Canal number two. I'm just going to read after Seeram's parents left to come to the United States. Uh, 3 youths who accompanied Seeram's parents to the airport returned home to Canal, and they're drinking late in the night and they're just talking about the violence. And this is an excerpt from the book. "And look what happened at Wisma, Julia," Jailal observed. "They killed so many black people and raped so many Indian women. Yet we in Canal not doing anything about it." "We can do something tonight," Bastu suggested. "What do you mean?" Paltu asked him. Bastu replied, "Bryant and his family live so well in Canal, and so many East Indians are dying all over the country, and we in Canal doing nothing about it. Nothing wrong with the mana tobacco stick." Paltu did not think of himself as a tobacco stick and asked, "What you want to do?" "I got a homemade gun and 4 cartridges," Basu replied. "Homemade gun? How did you make it?" Jailal Saraf, suddenly more interested. "From bicycle bars. They are made of steel, and 12-bore cartridges fit in them." Not to be outdone, Jailal responded, "And I've got some Molotov bombs." "How many?" Basu asked. Jailal squared his shoulders. He replied, "Enough." Paltu, who always liked to have things spelled out, asked, "So what are we going to do? You think we're going to eat the bombs? We're going to show everybody that people in Canal don't take iPads. You coming with us?" Paltu looked Chilal straight in the eye as he challenged him. You think that you're braver than me? Let's go. The full moon was shining brightly in the cloudless sky. An owl screeched, and most people in the village were sleeping peacefully as the three men set out towards Bryant's house. Bryant was dreaming that he was the best man at the celebration of Seeram's marriage to Lolita when a Molotov cocktails exploded against the wall of the house, engulfing it in fire.
Really powerful, Ken. But aren't you, in a sense, giving away the end of the story?
Uh, most of us read Julius Caesar. We know that Julius Caesar is going to get it in the end. And still we enjoy the book leading up to that process.
Mm.
You know how the book ended. We read the incidents leading up to what happened. Ceylon's illusions is a tragedy. And I wanted to point out the tragedy. I want to emphasize the tragedy in the book.
So, go ahead.
You go ahead, Ram.
Would you say writing Seeram's Illusions has been a kind of catharsis for you, that it takes away the pain, the writing of it takes away the pain? Do you expect it to be the same for the readers, that the reading of it will be a kind of a catharsis for them, in that they feel and they see what happens there, and it takes away some of the agony of it?
Um, I'm a bit ambivalent about that, Ram. I want to show the world what happened in the 1960s, and I want people to learn from it and to prevent it happening again. But I'm not sure that that is happening. Look at the last elections in Guyana. Did they learn anything from the 1960s? I'm not sure. It certainly has been a catharsis for me. I hope my readers will learn something from it and to prevent this sort of thing happening.
That's it for now, folks. Thank you, Ken, for this most revealing session. Any last words?
We may be having a book launch later this month if the pandemic rules allow it. Possibly a dual book launch. Ram is very modest and he did not talk about his book really. I was laughing throughout the book and my wife was laughing as I read it to her. The title of the book is The Man Who Broke the Lottery. If you want a good read for an afternoon, pick up that book. Uh, However, if you need copies of this book, you can get it at Amazon.com or you can email me, K Ramphal, that's K-R-A-M as in mother, P as in Pat, H-A-L at Rogers.com.
Okay, folks, remember that K Ramphal at Rogers.com and at Amazon.com to get a copy of Seeram's Illusions. And you can also get a copy of my book, The Man Who Broke the Lottery, also at Amazon.com. And we will conclude here, folks. It's been a very, very interesting session, and I believe we will have more of these later on. Thank you. Good night.